It's now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Col Catherine Coleman, United States Air Force retired and former NASA astronaut. Dr. Coleman is a chemist, a retired United States Air Force colonel, a former NASA astronaut with more than 180 days in space, accumulated during 2 space shuttle missions and a 6-month expedition to the International Space Station. She launched and landed aboard the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. Not many people can say that. And acted as the lead robotics and lead science officer during her tenure aboard the ISS, performing the second ever free flyer robotic capture from the station. In her spare time aboard the ISS, Katie played the flute 220 miles above the Earth, joining Jethro Tull flutist Ian Anderson for a duet between Earth and space, and she also coached actress Sandra Bullock in preparation for Bullock's role as a stranded astronaut in the movie Gravity. Sandra Bullock, she's one of my favorite actresses. After returning to Earth, she became an innovation lead for NASA's Office of the Chief Technologist at NASA headquarters and managed Launch.org before retiring from NASA after a 26-year career, as if you didn't do enough. Currently, she is a technical consultant for microgravity research and a public speaker. Hopefully you do a lot better than I do, because I struggle with it. See, I lost my spot. Advocating for inclusion in STEM and STEAM fields. So STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, right? So put the arts in there. We lose all creativity. And on teams everywhere. She serves on several boards, including the Smithsonian Natural History Museum, the Skycatch Company, and Dent the Future. She received a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a doctorate in polymer science and engineering from the University of Massachusetts. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Col Catherine Coleman.
We were negotiating time because the Golden Knights will not wait, and we are going to be on time. It's so exciting to be here today, and it's always embarrassing to hear somebody read your biography kind of thing. And but I have to tell you that all of that started, well, first it started in South Carolina, born in South Carolina, but I only lived there 6 months, so the accent part was not so hard for me. But most of that started right here in Massachusetts. I went to MIT undergrad, and I went to the University of Massachusetts for my doctorate. Best place in the entire world to study polymer science and engineering, like making things out of materials, for example, for airplanes. And I was ROTC at MIT, privileged to do my education here in Massachusetts, and then I went on to write PAT to work in the materials lab and work on new materials for our freedom, which I was very proud of. I would say I lead a charmed life, but I'd like to say that and I do, but it's more about being prepared for opportunity. And I think that that's what we're all here for today. And I wanted to thank General Parker, Colonel Durham, General Denson, for having me here today. Our representatives are here, people who are proud and also generous enough to serve in a public capacity, Mayor Koss, and also Connie Brown. I'm thinking, even though the colonel's in charge of the base, there's lots of people in charge of things, I am thinking of Connie as the commander of our space station today, because she's in charge of the air show. and you know, everybody's got. Thank you. You know, it's hard to do, and all of us need help to do those things, and you heard her and everyone else thanking their teams, and that's really what I'm here to talk to you about. I came with my family, which I'm just so pleased to be here. I've commuted between Western Mass and Houston for essentially 26 years. And so I'm married to glass artist Josh Simpson. He's right down there in the red shirt. And our son, who's 17, is out here at the commander's head table. And usually when I go and, go to work, it's never here in Western Massachusetts. And in fact, I have only been to the air show one time, and I have lived to come to this air show because it has got a reputation like you wouldn't believe out in the world. And it's just nice to see all these things in action. But the thing I think is so important about it is that lives will change today. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to come here not only to breakfast. I mean, this is just the breakfast, and look how we feel. But people come to breakfast. People are coming all day. People are coming all weekend. And many of them, whether young or old, are going to see somebody or something that they never thought could be their world. And they're going to realize that it's closer than they think. So what we're all doing is really, really, really important. When I thought about being an astronaut, it was not when I was 9 years old or 10, or we could go all the way up to the age of 20. And it wasn't until I was in college, Dr. Sally Ride, the first American woman astronaut, came and spoke. And I looked at her and I thought, wow, maybe I could try to do that. And it's still that way, I think, for a lot of people that don't look like those Mercury 7 in that picture. I mean, they're wonderful men. And I enjoy being so much part of that family, part of the astronaut family, because it really is a family. And yet, I think that those of us that look a little different than them have a responsibility to make sure that more of us that look different are part of the team that are solving the problems of planet Earth. And here in the Westover family, you are really a part of that. When we had the recognition at the beginning of the Master Sergeants, especially the hydraulics guy, I am for hydraulics, okay, just so you know. But it's hard to be recognized like that. And why do we do that? We do it a little bit for you we do it to recognize your service. And at the same time, there's a master plan, there's a motivation, and it has to do with the future. And I think that the people in charge here want to make sure that the people who work for them, both young and old, realize that their talents are valued and that they are respected, and that we wouldn't be doing any of the jobs that we do unless we had people with these skills. And so recognition is hard, but in some ways it's the way we carry the flag for each other. And I wanted to share a little bit about how we work as a team up in NASA. And I have, I think, 7 minutes left. I'm trying to be very timely, but if you wave at me, 3 more sentences and I will be gone. Okay, you might have to stand up to wave, but we really do want to be on time for the demos and everything. But we're really privileged as members of a space crew in that some of the lessons are really clear for us when they're harder to see down here. And it's about perspective. I was on a crew of 6 people living on the space station for almost 6 months, and actually not the same 6 people. So when I got to the space station, going up in the Soyuz, which is smaller than like anything you could imagine, they're really small capsules. So when I got up there with my crew of 3, a Russian and an Italian, there were already 3 people up there, so now we're 6. And then 4 months later, 3 of them go home, 3 more come. Now we're a different 6. And we don't get to pick any of those people. And all those things that you might assume about NASA doing tests and thinking, oh, would they get along? And oh, this and oh, that. It's just like the military, where it'd be nice if we could think about that, but we don't have the margin to think about those things because we hire professionals who are going to be there for the mission. And we actually just have to do it skill-based. We need a robotics person, a scientist, we need spacewalkers, we need all these different kinds of things, and we actually need them to be qualified in each other's disciplines. And so if you look at my crew picture, which I think might be on one of the displays up here, or if you look you'll see that we are way different people. And don't even know each other, I think, as well as you might think that we do, although we do train together for a long, long time. And I think that we have a privilege of knowing that if I don't do the work that I'm supposed to do, or if I don't enable my crewmate to do the work that he needs to do, which he may or may not know that he needs that help, but it's my job to get it for him. So if we don't do that, the mission isn't going to happen, and that's more important than how we feel about each other. And so I think to accomplish that, you have to be one of two things, and you probably have to be both. I think you have to be brave, and I think you have to be open. I think you have to be brave enough to stand up and say, so this is me, and this is what I think I bring, which you may or may not recognize. Sometimes you have to really find a polite way to say that, okay? Because sometimes you have to say it a little more forcefully. Sometimes you just have to do it. And just have that work that you know you can do, and that you are uniquely the person that needs to do it. You just do it, because it's about the work. So brave enough to stand up and be you, and open enough to look around, see people that aren't like you, and realize that they have immense value, maybe greater than your own, but certainly just as great. And a small, tiny example is I flew with Scott Kelly. He's the guy who got to spend a year on the space station. The rest of us were incredibly jealous. And I was on the mission before his one-year mission. And Scott and I are just very different. He's a man of few words. I'm a woman of many. I think that often my words are a little more tactful than his, right? And he's way more on time and way more minimalist than I am. So we're really different. And yet on this, and I wasn't even sure I would actually like this 6 months in space with him or 4 months in space with him, let alone come away as friends of a very special sort. But he was the king of constructive feedback. I was used to working in mission control, where I would say, Station Houston, this is what we got to say. And then I was up on the space station, and we're supposed to say Houston Station. But for 7 years, I had said it the other way around. And it would kind of confuse everyone, although I would be, often the only woman's voice on the loops. But, it was, and you're so busy and focusing on really the work, and then this thing comes out, and you're like, ugh. And he goes, I've been thinking about it. Why don't you say something completely different? Why don't you, every time you pick up the mic, why don't you say Houston on 2, meaning channel 2? So it just really helped me break my habit, and different other things too. So we're really different than each other, but we managed to be able to see each other. And I would be all about taking pictures and making sure that we shared our story. I was the second person to capture this supply ship, and I was talking to them about where to set up cameras. And this is like 2 weeks in advance. Let's charge batteries. Let's do these things, because it's not just our supply ship. It's the second ship to come up from Japan. It is their supply ship. It is a huge part of changing the entire tenor of how we do this mission with our commercial partners. And if we do not do this successfully on an uphill slope of let's send more and more of these that NASA doesn't build, we could change the whole momentum of the program. And so it's not just about us and us wanting to get our picture taken. It's about making sure that the mission is really going to go forward the way it needs to. And Scott goes, hey, I got a camera and I'll take a picture, Katie. And I said, it's not about one picture. We need really good pictures, and that means you have to take a lot of them. And you have to think about it different ways. And we are not photographers, and we can do our best to think that way. But if you're gonna lead up photography, talk to the people on the ground, ask them where they think the camera should be. Don't just assume you know because you are a jet pilot, okay? And so we got to have those conversations because we were brave and because we were open. And I think that is very much the way to accomplish the mission. So I'm so happy to be here at Westover with the Westover family, celebrating the men and women who serve, and celebrating the very next generation with all of its dimensions. I want to take the poster out for a sec. And this is the end. Colonel Durham. But the poster here, we've got air, we have space, we have people, we have a view, we have planets and stars in the background. These are all a part of our world. And today, we are recruiting the people that will play on this playground. So thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to a great day. Thanks.
Coleman. At this time, Colonel Durham would like to make a special presentation to Colonel Coleman.
So we were talking about what to get you, and I said, hey, let's get this really cool glass-blown space shuttle thing and give it to her. And then I found out that her husband's a glass blower, and I was like, she's probably got all the glass-blown stuff she needs in her house. And I know, having a long and successful career, both as an Air Force colonel and an astronaut, you probably have a love me wall that's enormous. And unfortunately, my budget for gifts is very small. So this is a very small token of our appreciation for you coming out to Westover and sharing your experience in space and making this truly an air and space show for us. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Katie.
How are you?
I'm with a local high school.
Okay, great.
And this is a cable access guy, so I know you don't want to spend a lot of time with us today.
No, I'm good,
but
yeah.
We have a contact with the International Space Station through AMSAT next year.
Do you really?
Yeah,
Awesome. In October.
Yeah, this is Mariusz.
Hey, how
It's
are
an
you?
honor
He's
to meet
teaching.
Mr. Colonel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are you teaching?
So we teach heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration. But we just happen to be hams.
Amateur radio
Ah,
operators. So,
And,
are you again?
I am.
You are?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
So you must have done some
I
contact
did.
with the
I did. I did
schools.
quite a bit. Yep.
Yeah.
I love to be up there, and it's a great way to bring people someplace that they don't live, and
Correct.
to help them imagine another place, another way. You know, whether it's careers in refrigeration, or
Right.
Well,
up,
see,
up
what
We
there,
talk a lot about air pressure.
up there on the space station, I mean, understanding the ventilation system and measuring it, and I mean, we talked about it every day. Not to mention, it's the only way we
yeah.
find things. Like when you lose something, you kind of drop things because you don't know that you're holding
It all
on to
goes
them.
back to it.
And then there's the way that if you understand the pathways of the ventilation, this is where you find things. You know.
Stuff
on the vents.
ventilation
It's just the way you eat a bag of potato chips.
Oh.
Or some crumbly thing that your mom sent you that is really wonderful but kind of crummy. You eat it over the vent and then you vacuum the vent.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that great?
They have like filters in all the vents.
We do. We
So
do.
you're
Yep.
filtering before it
We
gets
do a lot
into
of
the
chores, a
duct
lot of
system.
filter vacuuming.
And how do you heat and cool the space station?
We cool it. We have basically radiators taking all. Inside the space station we have water tubing,
Yes,
pipes,
right.
go all throughout,
Right.
picking up that heat from the instruments, which is really critical, right? And then it's transferred by combining with Freon loops, refrigerator cooling loops,
yeah.
and that transfer happens out there.
it's
So
happening in a
the heat is
vacuum.
actually reflected out into space. There's still enough heat.
Radiant cooling. You don't get any conductive cooling.
Correct. I mean, we do conductive to pull it out from the water to
Right.
the Freon, but then it's radiant out to space. And so there's these radiators, which then if they need repairing, then we're out there repairing.
So which Freon do you guys use up there?
That I don't know
It's ammonia.
the answer. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
ammonia. It does.
The shuttle used Freon.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. Yep. And if you in our cooling for the shuttle is in those payload bay doors.
Right.
And once you open those, if you have to shut those doors, you really can't maintain cooling for more than about 3 hours or so. Or else the computers stop working.
You know, I heard you talking before about how small our world is. And I always say this to the kids now. I say, where do you want to travel to? And they give me all these distances that they want to go. They want to go to France or England or whatever. And I said, how far away is that? I said, you can't travel more than 5 miles and still be able to breathe. And so I try and make the level of the atmosphere very, very narrow because it really is.
Right.
It's a very thin place that we live.
That's true.
So
That's true.
And I'm trying to
Have
stress
them realize
to them,
that. Yep.
not to trash our atmosphere because
Right.
because of the place that we live in.
Right. Well, and just to be aware of where you live in and what you see, but then what else is out there, and what is it to travel in between.
Right.
And for exploring new planets, we want people to be exploring new planets who have thought about those kinds of things. And so I think in school is the time to start.
So with that said, I'm trying to get an astronaut to come to our school.
Okay.
For the
And I know
space
you live
contact.
in
The area.
In
College.
Shelburne. I do.
We work out of Palmer.
Out of Palmer.
Which is just
Okay.
down the street.
Right.
And
Right.
we're a vocational school.
Right.
And we do have we just put a satellite station on the
Okay.
We're building our
On the
satellite
school.
station right
On the
now.
school,
Yes,
right.
on the school,
That's
permanent.
awesome.
But it was an integrated
And-
project in the
With
sense
the whole school.
With the whole school.
And so the guy that you want to talk to is here.
Oh, good.
In that there's a guy with the Giant Leap Foundation,
Okay.
and I'll give you my card if we don't see him, but he basically he coordinates kind of school visits. I mean, I'm not with NASA anymore, I'm
I
retired.
know.
And you would think it's really easy to come.
Yeah, but you're doing
And
a lot of STEM stuff in.
I am, and
You
at the same
are.
time, what I do is I give Brian, he keeps the list for me for when I go, okay, so I'm home and I have these days.
Right. Okay.
And, because it's
Okay.
actually pretty busy trying to sort of do all the things that,
Well, that'd be great.
you either should do because you used to work there or family things as well.
Great.
Anyway, so he's,
So
yeah.
he's here physically?
He's here, yep. Yeah, so I'm trying to think,
We'll try and find him.
usually he comes up, but he's a great guy. Giant Leap Foundation. I'll give you my card.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
But then
That'd be great.
basically Brian, because I'm
It's the guy
the
that's
reason
gonna
we do
talk
that
to
is
him.
because
Oh, no, 'cause
he
you'll
does
be
it for all the
overwhelmed.
astronauts and all over Massachusetts, and he does it with his heart. I mean, they're not making money.
No.
And he's a former retired bank teller who just thinks this is important. Yeah.
Oh, that's the guy we
So-
want to talk to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyways,
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
But I'll get you-
I've actually seen you speak before. I saw you at the Springfield Science Museum with your husband, with Josh.
Go.
So
Okay.
thank you very
Anyway,
much.
so I'll get you to Brian through that.
Okay.
That's okay. You can just write to me or yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank
okay.
you. I really, really appreciate it.
But are we
Thank you.
set?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
We're good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm here with Pathfinder Regional Vocational Technical High School, and they are making contact with satellites.
And the International Space Station in the fall time of this year, the last week of October.
So what are you guys at the air show doing today?
All right, so I'm Madi Zielinski, and this is Shelley Warren, and we're both instructors in the heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration program. And we have been spearheading the project to talk to the International Space Station, and we're trying to highlight what vocational education can do and how vocational education can work together in order to accomplish this massive goal.
So you're making contact with satellites today. How do you do that?
In order to communicate through a satellite, there's a couple things that we have to take into consideration. The first thing is we have to know which satellite we're going to be talking to. In order to find that information, you can look that up online. A great source for that would be AMSAT. They launch a lot of amateur satellites that are used on the amateur bands, and amateurs can use to talk through. One of the programs that we use is called The Heavens Above. It's a program that you can download on your phone or Android device free of charge. And what it does is it projects all the satellites that are going to be flying over in your area. It'll give you the uplink and downlink frequencies, which you will use. And it will also tell you what time and what elevation and at what azimuth point it'll be coming up.
So how is Pathfinder tying this together using the shops at the school?
So for our International Space Station contact, we've incorporated many of the trade sides in order to build the radio station. So to give you an example of how we're doing this is, first we decided where the radio station is going to be. Once we found the layout and decided where the radio station is going to be, then we started building the radio station. So for starters, we found out where the antenna array is going to be. Then we had CAD come over, design an antenna bracket system to mount the antennas. From there, we incorporated machine shop where they machined the antenna brackets. Then the machine brackets went to Autobody, where Autobody painted the brackets and labeled the brackets commemorating the Aries contact. From there, HVAC in the electrical shop mounted the antenna brackets. The electrical had run the conduit that we need to house the coax and our control cables to the rotor and the antennas. The electronics department had built a rotor control system which is going to be integrated to the rotor system that will automatically track the International Space Station as it flies over the school through our contact. Programming and Web has built a website documenting all the steps that have been taken and highlighting the events at school through this project. And the business tech shop has been taking pictures, documenting everything that's been happening, and been working with the programming and web to build the website.
Are you incorporating the academic side of the school?
Yes, we are going to be incorporating the academic side of the school this fall. We're going to have the sciences talk about the experiments going on the International Space Station. We're going to talk about the space race on the history side of the department. And we're going to be incorporating all this so that way the students can generate questions to ask the astronauts, the pool of questions to ask the astronaut as they fly over the school. So what we have over here is a little mobile setup of what we're going to use to attempt to contact an amateur satellite today at the air show. This right here is a culmination of a project that was incorporated between the school's amateur radio club, the machine shop, and some professional engineers from the A&E partnership out of Belchertown, Mass. Right here, what we did was we took a standard Aero antenna, which was commercially made, and we have made improvements upon it to make it a lot more efficient in our transmission and receive. And when we talk about making a satellite contact, a lot of times you take this antenna that we have mounted here in this bracketing system, and you have to physically hold it and track it with your hand. And at the same time as you're doing that, as my colleague over here is demonstrating, you have to adjust for polarization.
Right.
Now, you're doing all this, and at the same time you're trying to talk to a satellite, and in some cases you might have to adjust for a Doppler. So that's kind of a lot going on. So to make things easier, we went to the machine shop, told them what we're trying to accomplish. The machine shop designed this bracket and machined this bracket, so that way all we really have to do is just track it and maintain the elevation.
It makes it a lot easier. We can just adjust this radio up and down for the Doppler effect. You know what the Doppler effect is, or did you talk about it already?
No, I did not.
Yeah. So if you've ever heard a train coming towards you, it makes like a different sound than when it's going away from you. So it's like, and so what happens is radio frequencies, because the satellites are going so fast, they're going about 17,000 miles per hour, between 17 and 18,000 miles per hour. So as the satellite's coming towards you, it's crushing the wave. So the wave's going to be a little bit smaller. So you have to offset the frequency to a smaller frequency. And as it goes away from you, the wave gets longer because it's going away from you so fast. So we have to make an adjustment. So that's one of the adjustments he's talking about when he's saying the frequency shift. And we like to use 2 meters because it's less of an adjustment than when we're on 440 band. So we have to adjust it a lot. So this antenna has a lot of little things that are built in to make it a lot easier to make contacts. Hopefully we're going to make one in a little while.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Hotel Papa 2 Victor X-ray from Kilo X-ray 9 X-ray, Portable 1, Vermont. Kilo X-ray 9 X-ray at Fox November 3-1, correct? Fox November 3-3. Correct. Thank you so much. 7-3.
Well, it was fun.
Well, they did acknowledge it.
They did. I heard one guy come back.